I believe that machine learning, that sort of spotting of issues where you're really trying to get that idea of unstructured data analysis and additional answers, the AI is fantastic.
Welcome to Law Next. This is Bob Ambrogi, and I am here live at Legal Week in New York City. And today we're going to be talking with Jerry Levine, General Counsel at IPsoft, about innovation in corporate legal departments, and in particular, the use of innovative technology in the area of corporate compliance. We'll get to today's interview in just a moment. But first, let's hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. And now, on to this week's interview. Jerry Levine, welcome to Law Next.
Thank you for having me here today, Bob.
Thank you very much for coming.
I'm glad I can still speak without stumbling over my own words here today.
Yeah, well, and I've given you a role model for that. Little does our audience suspect, but yes, that's the case. So, Jerry, let's just start with your company. What is IPsoft and what do you do?
So at the moment, and hopefully for a long time, IPsoft is the world's largest privately held, as far as we could tell, AI company. We started out about 21 years ago as a managed services and autonomics company, and we've transitioned the past few years into artificial intelligence and how we can better improve people's lives through that function. Our core products are Amelia, which is widely regarded as probably the top conversational AI on the market today, as well as OneDesk. And tomorrow we'll be launching our new digital employee, which you can hire a digital employee online and have them begin working for you. And we're very excited about that. But I don't want to go too much into a product discussion, because I will just talk cheerfully about how you can book your HR vacations and get your password changed.
And because you're not a sales or marketing person, you're one of those lawyer people.
Yes, if I'm not the person they want me to sell. They do not want me out there selling, they want me out there helping them.
All right, so anybody who's curious about buying this product right now should just stop and not do it until...
Yeah, feel free to go to digitalworkforce.ai or ipsoft.com.
So what's really interesting about your role as general counsel is that when you came in, there was no legal department, right?
That's correct.
So this was how long ago?
This was 2015. End of 2015 I joined. I had been with Axiom for a few years, and I had done some incredible work with some really great clients from Axiom Law. And IPsoft called and they said, you seem to be doing great things. We need a GC. And my first question was, well, who's leaving? What's the current GC? Oh, we don't have one. We use outside counsel exclusively. And, the profitable company, well-regarded, pretty large for a privately held company.
15 years old or so.
15 years old, and everything was outside counsel.
That's really interesting.
It's a big change to suddenly bring someone in who, whose job it is to say, okay, we need some law and order here. There's things we're not doing or things we can be doing better that need to be operated with. And I think it's a big change to, especially the longtime employees, who've had to grow and learn how to operate in a more legal, a more compliant, a more organized world than I think they were living in previously.
Yeah. What do you think the point of realization was for the company to make them say, we need to get somebody in-house here?
I think there's a spend point. I think it was partially an outside counsel spend issue for IPsoft at the time. They were sending a lot of work out to various attorneys who are all very, very good, wonderful people. But it was the point where, they started looking and saying, we can really make this a lot more efficient and allow someone to come in and to build out this function, build out a legal department in general, but also begin implementing implementing issues that the outside counsel had been saying, you need to bring someone in to deal with this, or we can do this at this cost. And so I don't want to say it was entirely a cost consideration, but I think the idea of being able to really take this in-house and have someone whose job it is to lead the legal function rather than, our head of sales needs someone to review a contract, or hey, we need to have someone look over these HR issues. It's a change, and it's a step that some companies take very, very early. Some companies don't take until they're ready.
Right. And is that how they did they kind of give you a mandate? What did they describe the expectations to you as?
I think going back, and my brain doesn't work as well as it used to in terms of recollection.
God, wait till you get to my age.
I don't know. I'm only 1 year shorter of you, Bob.
I think so.
I think a lot of it was focused on how do we improve the sales process for them. Ultimately, we're a sales company.
Yeah.
There are some companies, you've got retail, you've got consumer goods. Software and software-related services are a sales product.
Yeah.
If you're not selling your software, if you're not selling the associated services, you're not making money.
Right.
And I think one of the issues they were finding is the purchasers were becoming more cognizant of what they were purchasing, and they were coming back with additional questions. And when you have more informed purchasers, I believe it's better for the industry and people as a whole, because you're no longer dealing with someone who doesn't understand what your product does, but you also begin receiving the questions back from their legal team. Like, how are we going to comply with privacy laws? How are we going to deal with uptime guarantees? And yes, these were issues they were dealing with, but they were easy for them to get around at the time,
right,
or before having a legal department. And as our customers became more sophisticated and more aware of those issues, you began to have more issues that needed to be addressed from a legal function, from bringing in additional financial support from the finance teams, and even being able to answer compliance-related questions. How do you vet a candidate? What kind of background checks do you do beforehand?
Yeah.
So these were all shared between other functions, whether it was HR or the finance team, or even a contract manager in the sales team, but there was no defined legal function.
Right. So the more sophisticated the customer, that drives the need for a more sophisticated response on the company side, and a more kind of organized workflow around signing off on these deals and negotiating these deals and all that, I assume.
I think it does. Yeah. I think it absolutely does, because what you find is the customer no longer wants to ask, well, what does the salesperson say? Or, yeah, hey, can you answer this question? All of a sudden, I'm getting questions within a week of starting. I'm getting questions from people who are saying, thank God there's a lawyer there. Yeah. Our legal has these questions, and we were stuck for weeks.
Yeah.
So I think that was the first real sign that, it's actually good to have a lawyer. It's not a bad thing. I didn't have anybody running through the office saying, kill Jerry, kill all the lawyers.
Right. Yeah.
Instead I had, hey, let's go ask him what we should do here.
Yeah.
Which is nice to be loved once in a while.
Just in terms of staffing, from 2015 to now, are you still one person, or have you grown in numbers of people?
We have grown. We have an international department. My first hire was here in New York. Second was in Germany and Amsterdam. Then another New York. Then another Amsterdam. And from there, and then...
You have offices in Amsterdam?
We have offices.
Or you just like going to Amsterdam?
No, it's beautiful. I love it. I've actually never been, because I have a team in Amsterdam.
Okay.
I'm not allowed to go visit them.
I see.
So we have offices right now in 15 countries. And the work is generally... Look, we're a small team, 6-7 attorneys, one contract manager still. Heavy reliance now, and growing heavier to rely on technology to assist in this.
Yeah.
Because we're at Legal Tech of Legal Week, it's important to note that we do use a lot of legal technology.
Yes. And we're going to get to that.
But within a few months, I realized that, I may be I'm talking about myself, so I'm going to say I may be wonderful, but there needs to be support. You don't just have one person doing it. And that was the first thing I went in to the CEO and to the rest of the management team. I said, I need to build a team. I need someone who handles commercial contracts, but also has knowledge in employment and labor, so we can cover two areas. And I do think that that's something where small teams, especially in-house, have to be focused, is saying, where can we bring someone in who has more than one set of talents? If you're too specialized in an in-house role, you are probably not going to survive if you're in a small legal department. If you're in a 500-person legal department, absolutely specialize all you want.
It must have been somewhat daunting to come in where there is no legal department and say, okay, how do I build a legal department? What do I do first? Where do I go next? I mean, how did you approach that issue?
So it was a bit daunting. I came from a publicly traded company with a legal department. We had just spun off, so we were small at the time, but we had a much larger, the former parent had a very large legal department that was still assisting us.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, my first question was, okay, where do we keep the contracts? Where are all the contracts? Thinking, okay, we're a tech company, we can do this. They pointed me to a file cabinet. And I said, okay, first thing we need is to get all of this in. So it really was a tremendously daunting task because all of a sudden, some of the tools I got used to having weren't there. Some of the items that I needed to build out needed some of the things that I thought were basic portions of a department, I had to go and buy.
Right.
And it was a lot of fun. I got to go talk to vendors and learn a lot about what was changing in the market and all of that. But from the oh my God, where do we go first? It was a big thing. It was a big project. And I really said, you know what, I'm going to focus on the two things the first two things I need to look at are corporate governance and almost compliance with everything that's going on, and organizing our entire contracting structure, how we're tracking everything, how we're maintaining contracts, and how we're servicing the customers.
Yeah.
So I really looked at those as the first two things, were governance and contracts. And everything else, I said, I can put this aside for the moment. If it comes up, I'll deal with it. But I also said at the same time, there are outside people who are here to help.
Right.
So we didn't shoot all the outside lawyers, but we did manage to say, I'll take care of these. These are things where we need help outside of my department.
Yeah.
And within a few weeks, I was getting that down, and then I started saying, I need help.
Yeah.
This is not a one-person job
with
this many people, this much business, this many contracts. We need to build a real structure for this department and for assisting the entire global team.
Yeah. What were there particular issues around compliance and governance that you were concerned with? I mean, your timing probably couldn't have been worse in terms of coming in, just ahead of, I guess there was already buzz, right, in 2015 around GDPR and people preparing for it and ramping up for it. So was that a major concern of yours, given that you clearly operate at an international level?
So one of the things that I first had to focus on with compliance was privacy, pre-GDPR privacy, and just dealing with the multitude of items to deal with there. And the good news is we're not a consumer-facing company. So a lot of the individual issues that you face if you're a massive data collector were not present.
Right.
We don't collect that kind of data. In fact, I went through this morning with our marketing team, reminding them of that my position is collect less, don't sell it, and let people get rid of it if they want.
Yeah.
At the time, though, you didn't have GDPR. You had the original European data protection legislation. You still had a patchwork of state laws, and a lot of it was going through with the IT team, with the sales team, and saying, what do we need to know, and what are we getting from these people? And it turned out the good news was there wasn't a lot, which is a great thing to find out. The bad news is that you have to figure out how you're going to make sure that it stays not a lot, and that you're doing that right going forward. In many ways, I think of GDPR as a huge positive in that sense, because it brought to a lot of people's brought to the front of their mind, what are we doing with relation to data? Where are we storing it? What are we doing with it? And how do we protect it better? And I think that was really key. Now, the CCPA is a whole different story. I think the jury is really still out on what will happen, but you have that same sort of questioning going on. You have one company like Amazon saying, we don't sell your data, so we're not covered by the CCPA. And then you have other companies like Google and Facebook where we know a big part of their product is you as the user,
right,
is what they're selling.
Right.
The good news for IPsoft is that we're able to say, this is our data, this is internal data, and then we're able to know what we're doing, at least with customer data, because most of the time we're a processor, we have defined rules, and we know where we're flowing to.
Yeah. Answering those kinds of questions around your own data, understanding your own data as a company must require you to work pretty closely. I mean, your IT guy was here earlier today.
Yeah.
Just before we started recording.
I bring him to every legal tech.
You must work across disciplines within the company pretty closely.
So I think you have to. And this is one of those things where I think it's important for in-house counsel. One of the key things, especially with a smaller legal department, is being able to work with a wide variety of people. Discipline, yes, and there's a wide variety of disciplines I have to deal with. Corporate IT and I are very well connected. Information security and I are well connected. HR and these are people I deal with every day. So it's not just, it doesn't just come down to being the sales team. Sales team, it's a guidance function. HR, the IT team, information security, finance, these are all very connected, and we're constantly working with each other to ensure that we're not only complying with law, but that we're making sure that things run right at the company. Because any one of us stops working and everything slows down. Yeah. I mean, just being here at the conference today, the amount of email I've gotten asking me where I am is astounding.
Right.
And I'm terrified now to look at my phone.
Yeah. Welcome to all of our lives, I guess. But so, I mean, you alluded to the fact earlier that technology has been an important tool for you in helping to begin to build out this department, manage the functions of the department. So, can you give me some examples of that, and maybe in particular with regard to the governance and compliance functions? I mean, how are you using technology in furtherance of those roles?
One of the first things I did was pull in corporate governance, which had been outsourced to 3 different law firms, whether you're in the U.S., Asia, or Europe. And I said, I need to have this centralized in one place. And for that, I ended up choosing CSC and their global subsidiary management function, which has really helped because they maintain my books. They call out things that need to be done if they're general corporate secretarial duties. And that was one of the first steps to getting the corporate governance aligned and across the globe. So one item that we've been able to easily do is have that sort of management function done and get that corporate governance function, at least on the basic level, done to a point where I'm able to tell you anything about what's going on in any part of the company upon request. So if we need to know, tracking, almost all of our governance tracking from the corporate governance side can be done there. The next step from that was to bring documents into compliance, make sure we're current, up to date on all the structural forms that need to be in, and making sure we're taking care of just general corporate secretarial functions. like how are we operating? And this is an example, not a true story. How have we been operating here for 10 years without actually registering in the state to do business?
Right.
That didn't happen, but that's an example of
you
something.
You heard it here first.
That's an example of things that I was trying to make sure we didn't get into.
Right.
So that was the first step, was centralizing and working with a centralized management platform for pure corporate governance, for the corporate structuring, and for tracking dates, regulators, filings, and all of that. And that had never been really. That was handled by multiple firms.
Yeah.
Many things were out of date.
Yeah.
Not that I think they did anything wrong, but I think that we had just a conglomerate of various people working on different things.
Yeah, and I don't know what the universe of compliance is for you. I mean, we talked about things like the California law, about GDPR. Are there other sort of specific big areas of compliance that you're concerned with?
I think probably the two that come out most at us are privacy, and the one that's been raising up recently, and I know you just did another panel on this if you talk to some people, is about artificial intelligence. We are an AI company, and the consistent question we get a lot now is on. We get a lot of questions about AI ethics. We get a lot of questions about how we're going to work along with the Europe. The EU has a code of guidance, a guidance code for AI developers. There's multiple pushes here in the US to do that. So, if anything, right now our compliance is primarily focused on privacy, data protection, and where are we going to help guide the compliance structure for the new world of artificially intelligent machines, software that can do certain roles. We're rolling out. Sorry for sales pitch. We're rolling out this new digital employee that you'll be able to hire online and integrate with your system from a desk. And so for me, a lot of the questions that are focused on compliance are being driven by the AI functions that we do, our AI products, and then also managing and ensuring that we're meeting our customers' expectations. So one area where we become very, very, very good, and this is thanks to our head of global procurement, has been building up a reportable, manageable, and understandable procurement structure so that we can go back and say, we have vetted each supplier. They've gone through this onboarding process. We know what they're looking for. We know we asked them these questions and they certified yes to these questions. You look at a big bank, they have massive compliance departments. You have hundreds and hundreds of people working in compliance. You look at a software company, you may not. And I'll be honest, we don't. It is a function that we have to share, although I am generally heading it and being asked all the questions about how do we handle this and how do we comply with this rule, how do we comply with this law. But again, the big function is focusing on what do our customers need us to be compliant with, how do we encourage compliance, and then how do we ensure that we don't have negative effects of non-compliance.
And if I'm hearing you right, and how do you help either develop or adhere to standards of compliance outside of your organization? I mean, one of the topics we hear a lot about with regard to AI these days is the explainability of AI. And actually this comes up in the compliance function because some organizations are using AI as part of their compliance function. They're using it as a predictive tool to identify potentially troublesome employees or
fraud
or patterns or whatever. But regulators are saying, well, if you're going to be relying on AI as part of your compliance process, then we need to be able to understand how that AI is working, what it's doing, right? I mean, is that something you've encountered at all?
We're generally a customer-facing AI at the moment. And I say that by saying generally because I don't want to annoy my marketing or public relations people and have them come after me later.
Right.
But I do see a real role for that in AI, but you're absolutely right. And this is something, last week or 2 weeks ago, there was an article by the CEO of Google and Alphabet about ethics of AI. And one of the things I commented on and had been asked about was, how are we really focusing on what's one of the key things we need to focus on for understanding AI? And yes, that's a key function, because if we don't know how it's making decisions, then we don't know why. If we don't know the method in which it's making decisions, we don't know why those decisions were made. Right. Now, are there positives to that decision-making process? Of course. Hopefully, we've taken human emotion out of a decision-making process. But there's a very good argument that emotion does play a very important part in the process of making a decision. That is, you can get into a real argument here on ethics and morality. So ultimately, when you look at that AI concept of how do we know compliance, I believe that machine learning, that sort of spotting of issues where you're really trying to get that idea of unstructured data analysis and additional answers, the AI is fantastic. We're using it for so many really cool things. NYU Langone and Columbia Presbyterian are using it to spot cancer. They're using it to analyze data that's coming out. But we need to, and even there, the doctors are saying we need to be able to know why it made that decision so that we can establish that decision. And where I think this really comes into, and one of the things that we'll see more and more is, as the field grows, is we're going to need to be able to detail how an AI reached its decision, and then whether or not, I think I called them oversight AIs. Because right now you have a human overseeing something, hopefully. You have a human that goes back after a flagged answer and says, okay, this is a problem and this isn't a problem.
Yeah.
For
AI says this is potentially a risk.
Right.
And it's not AI that responds to it, it's a human that responds to it.
Exactly. But there's this concept now coming of oversight AIs, which are AIs that sit over the first AI and do a second level of review.
Right.
And I think we're really getting to a point where we're going to be able to have to describe how those work, why they work, and what we can do to make that better. So in the compliance space, there's a real future for ensuring compliance and detecting unnatural situations. We do have products that do this at IPsoft, and they're primarily used by banks, and they're fraud analysis software. And they'll go through
transaction monitoring.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're a service we offer. Now, again, if you're processing 1 million, 2 million, 1 billion transactions a day, it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible for a human to do that. But AI trained software can start going and saying, these, let me flag them up to a human. Maybe they flag them, a future version may flag it to, not to toot our own horn, to Amelia, who would then say, yeah, I've been trained further on this. This is not a problem, but this is.
Yeah.
And maybe we've got Amelia as an oversight AI saying these are okay, these are not. And then maybe there's still a third level now that's now the human has been taken out of 99% of the decisions instead of 80% of the decisions.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is one of those areas where I can just keep talking and I have a lot of fun talking about it because you can start coming up with these.
It's really interesting. I think the other, I don't know if you've seen this at all or whether your company is doing this at all, but another area that I've read about AI and analytics being used in the compliance space is with regard to essentially predictive analytics, predictive risk assessment. Again, not just by trying to flag something that may currently be a problem, but to say, if your company is going to move its business operations into X country, then given the nature of your business and given what we know about this country, then these are things that you should be concerned about. I don't know if that kind of stuff is happening or not, but it seems I've heard there's certainly some predictive analytics being used in the compliance space.
And I, believe it or not, I said one of the things I wrote down before this was proactively monitoring risks and bringing them to the human awareness before they become known or before they become problematic.
Yeah, which is a more lucid way of saying what I just mumbled my way through.
That's fine. I think we will see it, and where I would see it is, for one of our customers, we're able to recognize and handle, I believe it's 85%, and please don't quote me on, I'll be quoted on that, but I believe it's 85%.
Yeah, this is all off the record.
Yeah, sure. I want to say we were able to handle some large number, 80% of customer complaints without escalating to a human being. And so where I see this going, where I would see this really happening is, can you begin predicting behavior based on, and because this is what we pay humans, this is where Facebook is, this is where Google is, they're doing predictive behavior. But if we're going to make it into something that's not just aimed at individual humans or groups of humans, we really need to think about how we're going to be able to manage that risk effectively going forward. And so where you're asking is, will there be software that can analyze, we want to open a new country, this is our business, what do we have to look out for? I'm not sure we're quite there yet, but we're getting there to the point where we will be able to say, would I say, okay, we're a software company, we want to operate in China. What are my big risks? Piracy is a big risk. At the time we're talking right now, there's a fear of coronavirus. Will that affect how we do work? I don't think we're quite at the level where I would turn that over to a computer entirely yet, but I think we're getting there where I could go to an AI and say, I want to know with that, I want to pull in CDC data, I want to pull effective data, and I want to be presented with what are the core issues that face someone moving into that area today, and where are we seeing them happen where do we think that'll be in 6 months? So if we're dealing with a, again, pandemic like coronavirus, if we're dealing with some sort of problem like that, we already know that Thai doctors, I believe, were able to cure it within 48 hours using a HIV drug cocktail. So now maybe if I have an AI that's monitoring country by country risks, maybe that AI begins looking and saying, complying with our health policies will be okay within 2 weeks because we know this can be eradicated within 2 to 4 weeks. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a health scientist, so I don't want to make anybody think that that's an absolute prediction for how we'll cure this current coronavirus. Yeah. But I do think that that the benefit will be, I think we'll see, and this is the alternative side of what I said earlier, was we want to take human emotion. We may want human emotion in things. We may not want human emotion in things. If I have a particular love of, a country and I really like being there, I may, as a human being, really want to push to move our operations to that country because I think it'll get me more trips to that country. I'll be able to visit more. An AI may be able to analyze and say, hey, you know what? There's not a market for us there. Yeah. And this could be this may be something where we're able to put this information into the artificial intelligence and think about it more, and therefore we can better, hopefully, and I'll bring this back around to compliance, comply with internal policies, comply with cost controls, comply with health policies, comply with hiring rules, because we may be able to get a better overview before we get into, by the way, I'm gesticulating wildly. We may be able to get a better overview of what our risks are going into something than we would have just by a traditional, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, issue analysis. I would say crack, but we don't want to think about law school right now.
Right. We'll get back to my interview in just a moment, but first, let's take a break to hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. Now, let's get back to this week's interview. So you've been in this for 5 years. You've still got a relatively small legal department. How has technology affected your thinking about how you want to structure or pursue or accomplish the goals of your department? As you've come to become aware of the technology that's available to you, what are the shortcomings? What are the strengths? What do you still need to do, sort of the old-fashioned way?
So, one of the things I started talking about was, let me put it this way. One of the things that I think lawyers can do that technology can't solve for us yet is our relationship with our client, our team, and all that. And that's one area where we really have, as an in-house lawyer, it's a really important skill set to bring in or to develop over time, is how to work with the various personalities, whether they're machine or human, in your company. What I found, though, is that a lot of tools designed for lawyers are not designed for the rest of the company. And so a big push on what we're doing now is making sure the remainder of the company, the other sales, whomever we're dealing with, is accustomed to working with our tools and understand what they're going for, and how we're going to build out the platforms we use in order to assist them better. I've had a lot of help from our billing management platform has really been able to show me where our spend is and where we don't spend or we don't need to have constant, I can look at this and say, you know what? I'm not spending any money on this. This is a great thing I can show to the company because this is something we've conquered and brought in-house and be able to take care of. The real goal is I don't have support staff, so whatever we can do to ease our intake and to make our output faster, better, more efficient, but still correct legally has been a great help. And from that, we went through a big contract management CLM software evaluation last year, and we went with ContractPod AI. We built out a lot of this around building an integrated platform where information can pass seamlessly from Salesforce and ContractPod AI into each other, and then to Workday, as we basically our triad of management software. Sales teams in Salesforce, everybody, the finance and procurement and billing is all in Workday, and we're working in this platform, but we're all able to communicate with each other through the API calls.
Something I was curious about is, again, you've come into an organization and have to start to build some structure around governance, around compliance, around issues that obviously they thought about before. They would have had to think about them before, but you've had to probably impose a little bit more rigidity around some of that stuff than was there, a little more process, a little more structure. Does that, is there a tension working in an innovative company, a company building AI and doing all this cool tech, and you as the general counsel having to kind of say, well, we need to kind of slow down over here or be careful over here?
So there's absolutely a tension. And ultimately, I think you get through as a GC, as a business savvy GC, you have to be able to say, if you just say no, you're going to be out of the company very quickly. And so the answer can never just be no unless it's something absolutely illegal. The answer should be, okay, I understand what you want. How do we do this? And then how do we bring this all into compliance with legal norms, with accounting, with everything? So one of the key things to learn here is, and one of the key things I've learned and I try to get my team to learn, is the answer should never just be no. If you answer no, everyone's just going to complain, so-and-so said no and won't tell us what to do. The answer has to be, okay, I get it, I get what you want to do, here's where we know we'll have problems, so let's make sure we address that. Okay, marketing team, you want to collect people's email addresses? You can do that, as long as you follow the rule that says this can't, the Information Commissioner's Office in the UK says that a pre-clicked checkbox, I believe, is in violation of GDPR. So, okay, you can collect their email address, you just can't have the box pre-checked. Some people are going to not click the box,
right.
and therefore you can't email them.
Right.
Okay, but we want to. Okay, well, you can't. You have to either make a reason for them to want to further,
Right.
or you have to understand that that person cannot be contacted except for operational emails or operational communications. Your sales communication, you have to cut them out of your list.
Yeah.
And that was a few weeks of, going back and forth and coming up with ideas and trying to figure out what you can do. And CCPA has much of the same rules. And that's for me, that's a really easy example of how you have to sit down and say, here are things we can do,
Right.
here's what you want to do, here's the options I can give you to do that.
Right.
It doesn't always work. Sometimes I end up, like every lawyer going, listen, I have given you my advice as a lawyer. I don't believe you should, I think we should do X, but if you want to perform Y, I understand.
Yeah.
And I will notate that and keep it down. And my hope is, every time, is everything goes right. But my job is, if something does go wrong, I say, great. There's no I told you so.
Yeah.
There's none of that. I just go and say, how do we fix this? We made the mistake. Let's go fix it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really key, is
Yeah.
when they realize, when your other teams realize that you're not going to rake them over the coals or go, you guys are so dull and you made the same mistake that I warned you about. But when you say, how can we help? How
Yeah.
can we fix this?
Yeah.
What can we do better? Is a real key part to earning the trust of not just the legal team, but the company as a whole.
Yeah, sounds like the art is really in giving the options there, not just saying no, but giving them some alternatives that they can pursue and continue to get closer to where they want to be, even if it can't be 100% of where they want to be.
I think that's totally it. When you're looking for any answer, there are absolutely, sometimes you have to say absolutely not. This isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But it sounds trite. Law and operating with the rest of a team is really the art of the possible.
Yeah.
If you're able to make things they want happen, but keep it within the confines of compliance, within regulations, within laws,
Yeah.
you are a hero and not the lawyers say we can't do X. The lawyers say we couldn't do this, so I can't do that.
Yeah, yeah. So what's next for you in terms of building out this department? What's on your wish list or your plan list for the next couple of years?
I would love 20 more lawyers and a nice my own floor. That would be wonderful.
A corner suite and maybe you have a corner suite. I don't know.
No. I'm in New York City. There's only one corner suite. There's only one corner office in my office. Where would I like to see? Right now we're in the process of implementing our new contract management system. We're building some new compliance requirements for some of our new software. What I would really like to see is be able to really industrialize further our entire legal tech structure. I'm looking at bringing on my first legal ops person other than myself, and I'm actually going outside. I'm looking for someone who's not a lawyer, someone who's a technologist rather than a lawyer, because I don't need a lawyer to do the job. I need someone who can implement what we need and make it understandable to the rest of the crowd, but also be able to communicate with us. So first, I'm expanding my team a little, bringing on legal tech, bringing on a legal tech operational person who will do this as their full-time job. And after that, I think it's going to be quite a bit more integration with additional systems. I was involved with a discussion yesterday in one of our forums about what are lawyers missing most when they're purchasing legal technology products. And part of that, I feel, is, again, this is going to sound terribly unhumble. Most lawyers aren't like me with a technology background. They don't go and say, what do you integrate with? They just want to know if it can do the job, yes or no.
Right.
Because the technology education, I think, is going to be the next step for lawyers generally. Because a lot of current practicing lawyers are not tech savvy. And it's hurting, I think it hurts the profession, but I think the key right now is, at least for me, is build out the workflows, build out the order in which we integrate, get more data passed through between our systems so that we're never having to go, well, why didn't you file that, or why didn't you upload this? And ultimately, what I'd like to be, one of the things we're going to work on is building our own legal Amelia internally, which, my first step is to be able to get even the request portals out of the process. I want someone in our inside IPsoft to be able to say, Amelia, I need an NDA. Okay, great. What's the account in Salesforce? Tells them the account. Okay, do you know who's signing it? No. Okay, I've generated your NDA. It's been sent to legal. Please send the copy to your customer prospect, or click here and I'll send an email for you. That's one of the cool things that we're thinking about building out next, to integrate with our internal systems, our own products, but also build a
product,
something that will be really cool for our teams to show off.
Yeah.
I don't just want to be the guy who's using, I've got the software and it's internal only. I want to be able to say, if I build something cool that I know works for me, and my team can build something cool like that, and our IPsoft can build with Amelia and our product something that really can innovate in that function, I want to make that available to other customers and then to build that out. So one thing I'm working on, I don't think so. Many things at once. I think that's your small department life, actually.
Yeah.
Everybody's got multiple projects at once that are all absolutely imperative.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Jerry Levine, really appreciated your taking the time to be on Law Next today.
Thank you, Bob. It was my pleasure.
Pleasure to talk to you. This special podcast today was recorded live at Legal Week in New York. I want to give a big shout out to Valerie Chan, the CEO of Platform PR, who was instrumental in helping us line up the guests for the various podcasts that we recorded here during Legal Week. You can find out more about Platform PR at www.plat4orm.com. That's it for this week. This is Bob Ambrogi.